Picking up where I left off. Where I left off yesterday. So I was talking about my friend Barbara. Talking about friends. I don't have a lot of friends, like extracurricular friends, but I have work friends who, you know, like we go to school or we go to work or whatever, and then we have our friends. But then we have our work friends, you know. And years back I thought, like, what's it matter if I hang out with people, because the people in my life are my friends, like whoever they are, you know. And I always treat people like objects, especially in businesses, you know. Like I treat people at the Jiffy Mart or at the Cumberland Farms or 7-Eleven or T-Bird or Shaw's or Market Basket or whatever, like cashiers, who now we recognize, like, that's one silver lining, and it's more than a silver lining, it's the silver lining that should become the cloud. Essential workers. The distribution network and how important everything is, you know. But like, and it even goes for the things that the essential workers sell, you know. Like there's the whole philosophy of shop the perimeter of the grocery store, because that's where all the good shit is, and everything in the aisles, most everything in the aisles is horse shit, you know. But like so much of what we do for work, and it's in our lives too, like so much of what we do for work, even if it's like quote unquote beautiful, quote unquote beautiful, like there are infinite beauties we could explore or express as having explored. But to be a quote unquote master, and not the master, but the maestro, to be the maestro is to know which piece of infinity to choose. The lasting hope, you know, say that though we are disparate groups and individuals and different individuals, say our hopes, however their trajectories curve off of us, and wherever the lines point, it looks like the lines aren't pointing in the right directions, but maybe these lines aren't really lines, but very loose trajectories or very narrow ellipses, you know. Like, let's assume that all of our hopes point toward an end. But like, what if that end isn't the end, you know? So, let's say once we get down, once we get to the hope that our collective hope points to, there'll be a relief. It will last a while, and then there will be a new concern and a new hope at a higher level. If we assume that our hopes point to the same place, Well, I'll have to annotate that later once I watch this again because I forgot my train of thought. Collaging meaning. And also, yeah, just as a return to my friend Barbara, who to me is the Jewish person I knew best. So, to me, she represents Judaism, and thank God, because she's one of the most beautiful people I ever met in every way. And yesterday I said, one of the things I respected about her was that she was a virgin when she was 22 in college, and I haven't talked to her for years, but I feel like she'd be pretty comfortable with me talking about that because, like, she's a really open person, and hopefully I'll reveal some equally embarrassing things, not embarrassing, but personal things about myself. I think I have. I don't know. That will be just recompense for the expense of that exposition of her. Okay. So before I talked about the ground ivy, I got some ground ivy right there. I've got different species right there. It seems as though there's a lot of subspecies of ground ivy. I have some really beautiful ones outside my house now that are growing that my landlord didn't get to with his weed whacker, that fucker. Though the wild carrots are already sprung back after a week and a half. Like, wild carrots grow really fast. They grow the fastest. Hares are fast. Rabbits are fast. Harries. But yeah, so the wild sour clover is now coming up. It's really grown a lot. Even in the last 2 weeks, I've always got my eyes peeled for wild clover sour clover, because sour clover and ground ivy are the key ingredients to a ferment I've described before that I'll be working on, and I need both of them. I don't know why. I tried it without the wild clover. I tried lime instead as a sour instead of the sour clover, and it's interesting that Irish people are called limeys, and the history of Irish people being called limeys is because they used to put lime in the whiskey in Britain or whatever for the Irish dudes who were on the ships drinking their scotch or whiskey or whatever, and they put lime in it to prevent scurvy. But when we talk about like clovers and 4-leaf clovers and 3-leaf clovers, sour clover is 3 hearts. I don't know if I can get the focus on it. Irish Spring. But it grows in 3 hearts. Some of them are folded up. I have some I got from the job yesterday I was at, and some from the job I was at today. So the dirt's different. But like, each stem of a sour clover has 3 hearts. And when they're doing well, they're like up, 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 but when they're tired or at night, they fold back down. So then you have a 6 shape. But what a beautiful plant. And it's so delicious, and it's sour. It's full of vitamin C, but we always associate vitamin C with citric acid, like that lemony, limey, citrusy taste, but the citrusy taste comes from citric acid. Red pepper has more vitamin C than an orange. So, what's up with that? Yeah, but what I want to do is, I'm not sure if these can keep living after they're, season. But I'm hoping that they'll go to seed while I have them, and maybe I can learn how to. I've never done this type of thing before, but I want to harvest the seeds of sour clover so I can grow them in the winter. Because there's a ferment that seems to be beneficial to my large intestine and colon. And it's the most effective thing, non-pharmaceutical, I've found for, like, I don't know, a certain type of cleanliness that relieves my bowels in such a way that it relieves also back pain. I have a pretty much persistent back pain, and it only comes when I have a certain type of bowel movement. I think I have a pocket in my intestine or something, like a hemorrhage in my intestines, like a little balloon full of stuff or something that only gets emptied every so often when I do certain things. The first time I noticed it was when I took, like, when I was really, really constipated, and I took tons and tons of, like, stool softeners and laxatives, and read up a little bit on Chinese medicine, Chinese, what is it, traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. The web has no weaver, and by all indications I had spleen key deficiency, which I don't know what that means, but I knew what it was and I did what it said, and that helped. But anyway, yeah, the ones I picked yesterday are doing good. The ones I picked today, I kind of hid them under a drop cloth. And they got paint. They were right at the bottom of a chimney. But I hid them under a drop cloth because I don't always want people to see me, like, taking away their wild weeds, being like, what the fuck's this painter doing? So I'm not good at hiding, but this was just something that grew wild behind all the trees and shrubs and ground cover, nice landscaping they planted, and it already had paint on it. So I figured, well, I'm gonna pick it and I'm gonna keep it. So propped it up a little. Tomorrow it'll get some sun. I put in a little extra water. They have really deep roots, these do, where the ground ivy doesn't seem to have, like, really deep roots. These guys seem to have really deep roots. So stuff I had yesterday was really soaked in water, and it seemed to be doing pretty good today. Sometimes when I pick shit, it takes a couple days for it to do good if I put it in dirt. So I thought, well, I'll prop it up. Tomorrow we'll get some sun. Soaked it up good. Alright, but yeah, Irish. So why are they really called limeys? Why are they really called limeys? Super important. And what's really interesting about that, oh shit, I don't know if I can find it. Yeah, it's downstairs. But I'll show it some other time. I showed it in another video. The Budweiser St. Patrick's Day aluminum bottle that has a 3-heart clover on the cover. So someone in their graphic design consultation department knows something, even if it's only intuitive, or it could be part of a master plan. All right. So once again, reorganizing. Did pretty good. Picked up some more of the stuff. Why does this matter? Some of my videos kind of matter on their own. And some of them only matter if I get somewhere. And I plan to. But not just for me, you know? The whole point of what I'm trying to do is propagandize being a weirdo and how it's okay and how, like, the stupid shit you do, like, this could be considered like something good. I mean, it's in process, but it's kind of good of a drawing, you know? It's not great, but it's kind of good, you know? And maybe some people can't do that. You know, I wouldn't have been able to make that drawing when I was, 14 or whatever. And had I never tried to draw at all, I couldn't do it now. But I did it in a couple days, a long time ago. And, but, like, that's not necessarily my favorite thing. Like, this anybody could do. Anybody could do this, and this is one of my favorite things. It's, like, bad in, like, 15 different ways. And I love it. I love it. I'm not saying it's better or more worthwhile than this, but, and yeah, like this. Just this image right here. I got some penny rolls in a plastic case. I got some pine cones. I got something from a Floyd bumper sticker of I think it's like a alcoholated seltzer. I got a roll from an empty parchment, and I got a Benmore high build empty paint can that's besmirched. But like this. What a beautiful image. Got light reflections, got life, got artifice, got my little tetra. I don't know what this object, the manila folder one, has a name. I don't know what it is. It's the same object as this, and it's the same object as itself overlapped with itself in this. It's the same object as this, except this is a different choice from that spatial grid that is a shape that can theoretically go on forever, if you can consider, like, in Hegelian bad infinity space, Cartesianally. That's the best I can do to describe it succinctly. Alright. But yeah, so this and that goes back to the whole Judaism thing. So I guess a couple of my last videos had Judaism. And I don't know shit about Judaism. My favorite thing about Judaism, and I don't know anything about it, but I watched and I mentioned it before, but, like, alright. Uh-oh. Boy, it's a sneaky setup I got. It's important when I talk about things that we recognize that I don't know shit about history. I don't know shit about I don't know anything about anything. It's just all these little pieces, you know? But to think that that in itself, our perspective, our story doesn't mean anything is wrong. Because we're this point in this ball of existence where all these points and all of our perspectives matter. So even if you only have this very buffet, this all-you-can-eat buffet, ponderosa idea of what existence is, that means something. It means something collectively, and it means something individually. Your perspective matters. My perspective matters. It's hard for me to convince myself of that, despite the work I put into it and that I put into expressing it. But part of it's because the good part of me understands the philosophy of it, and not just intellectually, but viscerally. I have felt that truth, you know? And that convinces me that this is a necessary exercise. Which will bear results, but I don't know what those results will be. I have a lot of thoughts that have yet to condense upon a conclusion. But yeah, the whole Jewish thing. Because, you know, as I said, this object represents the three-dimensional Star of David. Constructed poorly, it's already falling apart. Made it with rubber bands, though, instead of glue and strings, so that I can take it apart and reuse the sticks. But yeah, it doesn't look like a Star of David necessarily from that direction, but from this direction it does. And also, if you connect all these points, that's a square, that's a square, that's a square, that's a square, the bottom's a square, that other side's a square, so it's a cube. Like this all fits in a cube. So a tetrahedron does fit in a cube. And two of them fit in a cube as a tessellated octahedron. It has some other name, but to me it's a 3D David star. It's a 3D David star. You know? So that's one version of the 3D David star. So that's one way of thinking. To me, you know, where the Star of David's kind of the symbol of Israel, of Judaism as we think of it or as know it, not necessarily as it is, but and then the object I've been talking about lately, you know, this version, also made with rubber bands, so I could take it apart, but it's taking itself apart. I remembered what movie I was watching when I made this that I didn't remember the other day. Now I'm forgetting it again. But yeah, if we look at it like this, it's also the Star of David. If we could discount perspective, but it's a type of the same thing because you have a triangle going this way on one side, and on the other side, you have a triangle going this way. So here you have the chalice, here you have the blade. So it looks almost like a symmetrical object, but it's not symmetric, it's not anti-symmetric, it's this like 3D special thing. And I saw this image once on a, conspiracy, forgotten science, levitation, magnetism thing, and I was like, huh. So I've been wondering about it for years. I finally made a couple of them. And also, once again, it's one of the most simplest rational objects in existence. So it's something I think everybody should know. But I don't mean it in a bad way, like, as far as like, you don't know this. I didn't know it. And I'm not even saying it's right. But it's one of the first things that comes up. So it's pretty important. And it's aggravating, pisses me off that I don't understand it more and better. But that's when I'm being impatient and when I'm being a child and enjoying it. It's a cosmos of discovery. But yeah, this is also like deeply, to me, involved with the concept of Judaism. And what I didn't get to saying, well, hold on. Because this is a tetrahedron. This is a tetrahedron. This is an answer to what would I do if I were a tetrahedron? This is one answer, but it also creates pyramids and octahedron. This is made from amplituhedrons and is another answer to what would I do if I were a tetrahedron. And how this relates to Judaism also is takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It takes 22 amplituhedrons, zigzag amplituhedrons, each amplituhedron being 4 tetrahedron, so 88 tetrahedron, 22 amplituhedron, which, according to some guy, I forget his name, he's got kind of long hair. He works at the Princeton, Center for Advanced Study or whatever, or where Einstein worked, at his office, where I think Gödel was there, as was Velikovsky. But this dude's there, and anyway, when I listen to him talk, it's just like, I love watching him talk, but it's like watching a Martian or like someone speaking a different language, because even though we speak in English, it all just goes, but he excites something in my mind. When he's talking, like, I know this guy's on it. And so, like, the emotion speaks to me, even though I don't know what the heck he's saying. But, and that was before I knew what when I discovered the shape, I didn't know what an amplituhedron was. And when I say when I discovered, I don't mean like I'm the person who discovered it. I mean like when I came upon it. It's like when you take a tour of an archaeological site, like when you discovered something, when you first saw it, when you had that click in your mind, when 1 + 1 = 2, when all of a sudden when you're looking at that, for me when I was younger, multiplication and cursive. And I always think of like that multiplication sign as an X, and I always think of the cursive X, because they were like the first two things, like the multiplication sign. When I finally understood what that was, I was like, it was like the first thing besides addition and subtraction that I understood, and also with like the cursive X, because it looked so much like an X, was like one of the first letters in cursive. I was like, oh. But I remember as a little kid looking at cursive and looking at multiplication and just being like, I'm never going to understand that. It's never going to happen. Like, just forget about it. Like, 3rd graders, 4th graders, they are so fucking smart, And that's part of what I posted a couple days ago, was like, what now is about. It's like, a tetrahedron, this is the basic shape of three-dimensionality plus, but three-dimensionality. You gotta have 4 points. And it's just the most perplexing object. But it's okay to be stunned, and it's okay to not understand. It's okay. But it's also really important to like start exploring this. I'll just say it, yes, this. Everybody needs to explore tetrahedron, but I don't mean it like this. I mean it like, like, not like, but like, In my best of times, that's how I approach it. In my worst of times, I'm like, you fucker! Because it's hard. Simplest object in existence. Hard to understand. Because thinking in 3D plus is, we live in 3D, but we don't think that. But yeah, so this has 22 amplituhedron, and amplituhedron somehow relate back to some concept of physics or cosmology that dude, I forget his name, I'll find it later, talks about, and how somehow that shape corresponds to reconciling previously unreconcilable concepts in physics. I don't know any more than that, and I don't necessarily know that much, but he said it, and something about that guy makes me think he's on. But anyway, um, 22, 22 characters in the Jewish alphabet. So this object, and there's 3 rings that don't share a center, but that are centered here. This Mercedes shape. And it's another answer to the question of what would I do if I were a tetrahedron, and it's also a thing that's related back to Judaism, because this is the Star of David, this has 22, and 22 also goes back to India and their music system, which is 22 Shruti. We have 12 notes, they have 22 Shruti, but the 22 Shruti and the 12 notes like overlap geometrically perfectly, and it's interesting the way in which 12 and 22 overlaps acoustically. And then we can assume if there are synchronicities and analogies between wavelengths as they relate to sound and wavelengths as they relate to light. Never mind, like, what's the wave of all waves? What? Because there's the spectrum of light and the spectrum of sound. So we can imagine that somewhere there's a spectrum of reason. This arc that unites these arcs. Where does, cosmologically, where does the spectrum of sound and the spectrum of light meet? That's a big deal. Check my time. I think I'm doing pretty good. Or Barbara. Try to let my mind go. Yeah, so this is an amplituhedron. But there's all kinds of things these shapes can do if we play with them, and again, they're just the simplest shapes. Actually, this is an amplituhedron plus an extra tetrahedron, then you get like this little Pac-Man dude. And it's also like a Millennial Falcon a little bit, but then you also, I didn't tape these edges, so it's like I got this, it goes like this, whoops. Then I got a rectangle. I don't know, the way things fold. But the way tetrahedra shape together, the way they fit together, it's just so weird. And you can explore it in like so many different ways. It's such a mysterious object. And it's the simplest object in existence. And it's endless. Seemingly. But then the thing is, okay, You have to transcend from like, what would I do if I were a tetrahedra? If I were a tetrahedra, you have to transcend that to, what do they do? So it's not just a philosophical or mathematical study. Because if you study the simplest thing in existence, it speaks to me. It speaks to everything. What could I do? What should I do? What do I do? I can play with these things all day long, but if they exist, and in some sense they do, because 4 points are necessary, must have 4 points to be a shape. Or in some way correspond to 4 points in space as a shape. There has to be that correspondence. What is it? All kinds of ways it could be, but it is a way. Same with me. There's all kinds of things I could be, could do, could be conceived of as, but no matter how I conceive myself, I'm something. Specific and exact. Like you. So, and there's all kinds of ways to explore that. I just, in this whole space of things where we're all in this structure together, I used to want to figure out how to be in the center in a pursuit of power, which is ridiculous for someone dumb as me, you know. But I think probably a very prevalent human emotion. But now I realize like what I want to do is figure out where my position is and get there. Be there. And that's the only way you can really know the center. Is to be, the center of one's own space, such that we can view the center from the place we were meant to. In some sense, if we all were aligned in our positions such that we all were viewing the center not from the same perspective, but from the perspective we were meant to, such that we could see it, we might all just collapse right to it. Home. If we all got home at the same time. All. Yeah, and I mentioned it before too, like one of the only things and this is what I started out my video with, was I don't know nothing about all the esoteric stuff or whatever, trying to learn things, but saw a National Geographic thing years back of this dude who's translating the Zohar into English because there wasn't like a good one or like a complete Zohar I don't even know what the Zohar is. Translation, but I did talk about the Zohar before. Zohar, Zarathustra, Zoroaster, Zorro, Zo, Oz, Zeo, Omega Alpha. But was the beginning statement, God withdrew in all directions. In the beginning, God withdrew in all directions, which is like the exact inverse and opposite of like the idea of the Big Bang, where like everything came from nothing, where it was like God withdrew in all directions would be like, well, everything was everything. And vacuity was created such that everything could interact with itself. Everything could interact with itself in a vacuity in the middle of something bigger than it. Such that instead of the universe being infinite, yet still possessing a perimeter in a sense, or at least a perimeter of view, like the perimeter had an infinite volume, like a perimeter with an infinite volume, and a finite inner space where infinity came to experience itself, but it's the same thing. And in that case, you can imagine this stretching, creating this vacuum, this vacuity. And even that, how could that happen? But that little quote, and I'm probably paraphrasing it now, but God withdrew, in the beginning, God withdrew in all directions. Whoa. And of course, in the beginning was before there was day and night, before the light was separated from the darkness. So what's the beginning? And today I'd never heard of the guy before, but Eric Lerner. Checked out his YouTube channel. He was, I think he wrote a book like The Big Bang Never Happened and all that. And it goes back into the whole idea of like the difference between forever and eternity. Not synonymous terms. Just like God and Lord. Not synonymous terms. Or God and Elohim, or the one God and the gods, or God and the demigods, or the demigods and the demagogues. But yet, anything that kind of relates, and it's just trying to find that way that the points fit together. Do they fit together like this? Do they fit together like this? Is there an analog between this? And if so, anything that is analogous is part of a shape. All shapes must have a center, and if they don't have a center, they have to have a center. They have to have a central principle, the highest principle, God. Call it what you want. I have no other name for it. And I've never been like I've said before, like I have a children's Bible understanding of the Bible. Aged through time, so I don't even remember most of it. But that's how I was raised. So that's, however I come to truth, I came through there. And when I was younger, when I said my prayers, I did pray to Jesus, but I did always feel kind of funny, a little bit funny about it, because it didn't make sense to me. And I was Protestant, so I never incorporated the Holy Ghost. And it's took a lot of study to even create a simple conceptual model. But I've created one for myself. And when I say I created, I mean one has condensed in me, both theoretically and viscerally. But I will say, I came up through the Christian thing, but I'm not a Christian. I'm not anything. I'm Jeff. I'm Jeffrey. That's it. That's the only word I can put to myself because that's who I am. But I'm under I want to find out what that is. And if I'm to be anything else, I have to be that through the way I know myself. But I have been a God person forever, and that's what I am. And for Christians, I'd say, because definitely, if people are too much God, people are definitely too much. People are too much I don't know enough about Judaism to say what Jews or different sects of Jews or who are the real Jews. I don't know the God they pray to. I don't know the personage. I know Moses is a big deal. I know Abraham's a big deal. But I don't know who people really put up on a pedestal in different families or different groups or whatever. But in Christians, it's Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And in Islam, it's Muhammad, Muhammad, Muhammad. And that shit's got to go. It's got to go. And I'll speak from my children's Bible Christian upbringing standpoint. I don't pray to Jesus. I pray to the God Jesus prayed to. That's it. Jesus wept. Jesus prayed. So I don't pray to Jesus. I pray to the God when I'm in myself or in my best, or theoretically and at my best of times, viscerally. My best of times are tough. They hurt like a fuck. They're not even though I like all the shit. I like all of it. But that's not necessarily when I'm in communion. When I'm like this, I'm in communion maybe with my brother and sister, But when I'm in communion with God, God ain't never give me no peachy keen kumbaya when I'm right there with God. Not even with him. Not even with her, she almighty, but with her. Or at least the gate. If you were to see the devil, you might think you're seeing God, so to speak, at least poetically. But if the highest God you can see, God's most beautiful angel, if the highest God you can see is the devil, you're closer than you think. The road to hell was paved with good intentions. So go to hell and bring your good intentions with you. One of my problems is whenever I saw that backside, that thing, I didn't go all the way through it. Maybe next time. Which I'm very, very, very scared of. Can't rush it, can't make it happen. It's gonna happen when it happens. And I asked a question when I was there. I didn't mean to, it just happened. I didn't expect an answer, I thought I was talking to myself. It was all black, different kinds. Heard Seven Bomar one time talk about, I think it was the I don't know if it was the Kemites. I don't know if it was them who described it, but somewhere, some old group, ancient group called something triple black. And I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but it made a lot of sense to me. All different types of black. So complete blackness. But like discernible. Every type of the darkest dark. There's like me, looking like me, looking at me, looking at me, me, looking at me, looking at me, inside of me. And I was just like, I can't remember what I said to myself. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to live? How am I going to survive this? How do I not die? I don't know what it was. It was like one statement. Which is like this instantaneous statement. And I was there for like a forever 1 second. A long time that didn't take no time. As soon as I said that, faith, faith, faith. A booming voice of mine. And then came back like this. That was 20 years. I survived. I'm surviving. I'm serving it. Just trying to figure it out. That was the most intense experience of my life. I guess that's not all of it, that's not the backstory, that's not the full expression, but I said it. I guess I have to. It was like that painting, but all black, all around, everything just. There was still, it was like eternity, kinda. It was atemporal of a spot. But there was still this sequence, there was this overlay. There was still a sequence to it. But it might be like here, 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 you know? But there was also that other thing. Yet, there, I ask question and desperation, got an answer. And that answer, faith, 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 saved me on another faithful day when I needed it. And that's all I had. It's not all I was given, but in that moment it was all I had. Faith, faith, faith. When everything, in the stillness of this room, as still as this room is, maybe stiller, in the dark, my body, my skin, my mind, my heart, why, if we can get to a place in society, in the world, because I think there's so much greatness buried away in the crazy people who go through shit, and I'm a functioning alcoholic. That's not the worst of it. I'm a functioning, fucked up, crazy motherfucker. But I go to work, I pay my bills. I got some debt. I don't pay all my bills, just the ones that count, or the ones I have to. And I'm not functioning well, but I'm functioning. I'm not a straitjacket yet, and I haven't had a complete schizophrenic dissociative split yet. So that's great. But I've said it before, I think there's so much of like craziness and crazy people and those crazy thoughts because we're all receiving, and there's so much hurt in the world from people, and there's so much hurt in the world from animals who also beam. When we're tuned into it, we get it, we receive it. When we tune ourselves in different ways, just like crystal radios. I mean, crystals are a crystal. Everything's a crystal. By definition, a crystal is basically any geometric shape. That's all we are. Is crystals. Crystal radios. They can tune them in. You can make ones without batteries. When we tune ourselves differently, when we expose ourselves to different art, different things, it's just like changing that dial, and we tune in. And if you're empathic, you're gonna pick up those waves of motherfuckers getting hurt. For that matter, you're gonna pick up the waves of other people feeling hurt from other things getting hurt. Just like satellite transmission. And then if you're getting this person's transmission, this thing down here is getting murdered. Person, cow, a chicken, a lamb, a goat. Pick it. That thing's getting killed. That thing's being herded. That thing's being enslaved. That thing's in a barn. Born in a barn. So this person's feeling it, you're feeling it, they're sending it, this person's receiving it, you're receiving it. You're receiving this person's transmission, they're receiving yours. Shit happens, man. You know what happens. Weird shit's happened in your life, I don't give a fuck who you are. So we need to put it together. We need to make sense of it. It's nice to be inspired, and it's nice, don't get me wrong, that's kind of where it's all at. By other people's works and see the mystery and the magic and the this and the that. But there's all kinds of ways to tap into that magic. But the point is, because if you know how that shit works, you can do that bad shit. You can be the one murdering, knowing some of the shape of how all these transmissions works and do shit. And that's bad magic. And people do that shit. The point is to find the Holy Ghost, the whole ghost, the complete picture, the complete transmission, the center of that pattern. So all I'm saying is we should work on that. And there's no better place to start than with a circle and a tetrahedron. On this planet, that's pretty much where everyone started in the exploration of knowledge as we know it. There are other techniques, other things to do, meditation, all that kind of thing. Exercise, or just simple pleasures where you're not thinking about nothing, taking a little walk, watching that sweet wind leave blowing in the breeze, listening to some music, whatever. But I think I have to say definitively, we all must familiarize ourselves with the most basic objects of reason. A point, a radius, a circle, a tetrahedron. At whatever clumsy, playful, preschool level we can, no matter how old we are.